last week we were inside of the drawing board, and this week we're on site with Ryan Watkins, General Manager and Certified Nursery Professional from Brownswood Nursery, and we're going to talk about how to take your yard to the next level.
Absolutely.
Now, we've already got the plants here. What do we do next?
So a lot of our customers show up, they just bought a house, they just built a house, they moved into a house, and they have existing landscaping, and one of their big questions is, what do I do now? So what I want to talk about briefly is, if this is your yard or your yard has something that looks like this, here are some things to think about. Number one, we want to think about, what are our tiers? So back tier, we call tier 3 or tier 2, whatever the space allows for. These are boxwoods. So right now we have 3 boxwoods on this side. That's an odd number. We want to design in odds generally. I like that. I have no problem with it. They're looking really flush, so they're looking good. They're not too high. They're not blocking the railing. That's a keeper. Okay. So let's go down. This is the sago palm. This is actually a cycad, not a palm, but we call it a sago palm. It is poisonous, so be careful. But it is a nice anchor. It's a nice central point that kind of accentuates the bed, and it gives you something interesting to look at.
Okay.
As we move down from there to the front tier, or tier 1, we have the liriope. This is an evergreen giant liriope. Now, I'll tell you, this has some brown damage right now, but it can be cleaned up. So we can cut all this back and get it fertilized and get it looking good. It is getting a little big, though, so this may be something we might want to consider taking out and getting all these dug up, removed out, and put in something fresh, something flowering. Some clients don't want a bunch of green. All this is going to give you all year is green, green, green.
And what would be an example of something you could put in? So
like a perennial, like lantana, verbena, gara. There's lots of things that we could do.
And perennials you can mix up every year.
Well, yeah, the perennials are going to, die down in the winter, come back in the spring.
Okay.
So you're going to get lots of flowers, lots of color.
Annuals are the one you plant.
That's right.
Annually.
Annuals you plant annually. That's right. And then as we move over here, this is a loropetalum I really like called Purple Diamond. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. But what's happened is you've got a lot of leggy stems at the base. This is very common for loropetalum. If you keep trimming the tops, you get kind of a trunk form at the bottom and then a little bit of canopy at the top. Mm-hmm. So what I would recommend is doing what we call a renewal pruning, and we would go down 6 to 8 inches, and I mean that literally, down to this point in the trunk, and we would cut everything off at the base and let the shrub regrow. It's from restructure from that point, and that's going to give us a thicker, fuller plant from the base.
How long does that typically take to regrow?
Depending on the size of the shrub, in a loropetalum, I've done it in my yard a couple times, 3 months.
Okay.
So you could just keep sort of pruning this and kind of wheeling it along, or you can go ahead and get in there and get your plant back to the correct height and get it full and thick again.
Okay.
The last thing I just wanted to point out is these plants. This is the Japanese yew. Sometimes you have a vertical space, but it's narrow, like between these 2 windows. This gives us a good representation of a plant that works well. Also, on either side of the garage, you kind of have that narrow little strip. This plant is what they use in Disney World to shape the animals. So yeah, so if you want a waving version of yourself, you can do that. This plant has really prunable features, so you can prune it into anything you want. It can be very narrow, very short, so it's very versatile, and it'll grow in sun or shade.
Now I'm a Disney aficionado, and they do not have the light green. Can you cut that back so it's more of a deep green color, or will that always grow?
So this is the new growth. So it starts lime green, and then it will eventually turn dark green.
Interesting. Very good. Well, if you need help with your yard, come on out here to Brownswood Nursery with Ryan Watkins, and he can help talk you through what revisions need to be made for your own home. Stay tuned. We'll have more news and weather coming up after the break.